Today we'll have two sessions. We'll begin with a session that I'll just guide us into the place we are in, because it's very, very important for us to understand anything that happens. There's always given signs in the celestial sphere. And thanks a lot, of course, for what Pastor Kevin was explaining and illuminating even about what we were speaking about last time. And we are going, as he said, today will just be a continuation of what we started last week. And we'll try to put everything proper into context. And again, I'm thankful so much, Robert, to see you joining us. It's a privilege. We missed you last time. There's been a hitch that we've not managed to share the content that we created last week on YouTube, but we'll be sharing that within the next one day or so. And you'll be able to, every one of us will be able to be on the same page. But today, we'll still do a little recap of what we did over the last week. So,
thank you, Pastor.
You're welcome, Robert, and everyone else. So today we'll look at just some few indications about where we are in time. And just as we began last week, we again, just review something that we talked about last week in connection with the place and the structure and the junctions where we have with the luminaries. The luminaries move in very orderly fashion, and we can be able to glean certain openings. There are certain windows that open at various times, and they don't mean much by themselves, the alignment of the planets. And people have spoken before, even people who are very skeptical about the structure that the celestial sphere shows and what its meaning is. And they say because the celestial bodies are so far away from us, the main action by which bodies such as the sun, the moon, other planets work by is by gravity. And therefore, somebody actually was talking about, I think it's one of the, is this one of the, what you call readers of citizen science who tries to teach science publicly. I think it's Neil deGrasse Tyson. I would say it's a fallacy to think that the relative position, like let's say of a planet like Mars, would affect you because of where you were born and what time is it that you were born. And he says, yeah, he made this remark and said that the midwife who was assisting your mother to deliver, while Mars is huge as a great gravity, but it's so far away. So the person, like, let's say somebody like the midwife there who may not have lots of gravity, but that one had more effect on you, the projection of your life than maybe Mars was. And in a sense he was, because it doesn't matter what planets are arranged, it doesn't matter what order they are in, it doesn't matter what window is open. When the being without the authority to speak or not to speak or to do creative work does not do it, and that is man. So finally, in the final analysis, humans still remain to be the ultimate authorities. And what it is that we speak in time that we are in, that is what determines. So this was a short summary of what we had last week, and I just wanted to show you, because the changes don't take much in the celestial sphere. They don't always take much. They don't, or rather, they don't change so quickly. Over, like, let's say, a period of about 7 days. As you can see clearly, what we had the sun right here, right about 3/4 of the way through the fourth house, number 6. No, rather house Cabell house, which is the 5th house. And then we had Jupiter here, and then we had basically no presence here of any planet in the what we call the 4th quadricell, but we did have some presence here in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. But you can see clearly the 2nd quadricell of the heavens. This is where most of the activity was, because here we do have Mars and Venus, they were in conjunction, and actually they were just about to go into conjunction, but they are right now in conjunction. And I was actually marveling about, because there's somebody who asked me a question a couple of days ago and asked me, when are we going to have Valentine's on our calendar? And I just told them, I don't know, you'd have to institute that, because days like these ones that have significance, maybe is it for romantic love, but it's still part of life. It's part of something that you can describe in the planet. It's one of the great, one of the things that we get to learn about is we're going to speak about man taking on the responsibility to name. Up to now, in the entire account that we've been reading, we've just been hearing God naming things. Naming talks about programming, and when you program something, then it falls. And within this year, what of course we know 2 days ago, everyone was talking about Valentine. We didn't talk about it in here, but it would rather be appropriate because in this time, Mars and Venus, like Mars has been programmed to be the very expression of masculine power by all the astrological systems of all that are there in the world, and Venus is the very expression of feminine grace and love and softness. So there we see they actually very much in an embrace. They are actually in conjunction. So well, this could be an appropriate time, but that doesn't mean that doesn't happen always at the same time. So you're going to find out like maybe next year it's going to take place certainly in a different time. It will not take place at this now. So we could choose that's what I was telling them, that maybe we could use that one when it comes to time. We are still, as you're aware, we are still programming our calendar as it is. Mercury is here right before the sun. The Mercury and Venus are very, very well related. Their cycles are very related to their position to the sun. So here they are, and that is why they are the morning planets. Jupiter, that was last week, rather. So let's just go now and look at what the situation is this week. So these are the major planets. We're just looking at, because sometimes if you put all the points and all the minor planets, it can get very clouded. So sometimes I just try to look, first of all, give a picture of the major planets and where they are, and we get what what it is. As you can see, Venus and Mars, actually, this was the situation as it was. I usually take something for a week at the middle of the weekend. That means there's sunrise on Wednesdays. Is when I usually try to depict the entire week, because you'll be able to catch all the planets more or less within the junctions where they are. And Mercury very much in almost the same place. It just happens at this point in time, Venus and Mercury, because they are coming to that point where we talk of them getting to a standstill, as they are about to change their motions from prograde to, or rather from retrograde, because they are now in a motion that we call retrograde. So they are moving backwards because they are moving away from the sun. Their cycles are not understood in the same way. Other planets, you will describe their cycles by how they move from one house to the other. Venus, and actually even at this point in time, we would describe, if you use that description for a planet like Venus, it would seem very clear. Venus is actually moving. It actually was very much close to house 3. It didn't get quite right out of house 4, moving in this fashion when it was literally, even with the understanding of retrograde being moving across a house backward. But the definition that we have for Venus and for Mercury, because these are they show cycles that are very, not like all the other planets, we have to describe them. The best accurate way to be able to gain what insights in what they mean is to describe them with how they relate to the sun. But that is why, because at this point in time, they appear in the morning because they are, or rather, we can call them morning stars in that sense. Just about a month ago or so, they would have been evening stars. And within at least within a month, Mercury will have again become an evening star. Although Mercury is such a fade star, somebody in a city like we are, many of us are in Nairobi, or I would guess even maybe, I don't know where exactly someone like Robert is. But many of us will not be able to see Mercury because it's always so close to the sun. It's much fainter than Venus. But I guess if you woke up very early in the morning and you had a very clear sky, you'd be able to see it. But Venus is very, very visible in the morning. If you wake up in the morning, early, not really in the morning, but in the last hours of the night, and you see a bright star, that's going to be Venus. And we have Jupiter here. The Sun actually at this point in time is just entering into house 6. So it's leaving the house of Cabal as it were last month, and then it's going to be here. And as you can see, the distance between the Sun and the Moon is increasing. Right now, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 6 houses. So it's just a matter of less than 2 weeks, and then we are going to have them meet in house 6 for the beginning of a 7th month. That's one of the ones that we are highly awaiting, because that is when we are going to be celebrating all on our own, in that sense, the Pasaka festival, for the first time having fixed it according to the rules of our calendar. And more of that we're going to cover later today. So this is the view now. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but now here is where you can see all the planets, including the minor ones such as Venus and Pluto. The thing to note, I actually managed to note here, it may not be very clear to see on a phone, I realize. And that's why I say sometimes it may be good if you have a computer, you could use it to view some of these details. But if you can see, the minor planets, I've indicated them in turquoise or blue, light blue color. So Pluto is just about to enter into house Cabal. For most of the last, about the last 1 decade or so, Pluto has been in house 4. And that's also something that amazed me, because I had not actually managed to receive up until some few days ago that actually that's about to happen. Within about a year, Saturn, which has been domiciled in house Cabal, will be moving out. But Pluto will remain here. And that's going to be very significant, because Pluto is going to take over a year. Over a decade to translate that. And we have something very unique in our calendar, that in our system, we have this particular house that at any one time will have a planet. There's no single time during the entirety of our calendar now that is 1.5 years old, it has not had a celestial planet here. And it's no wonder these are the first houses for us to name. The other remarkable thing is the other house that you have named. You can see it's actually very, very hard to, the act of naming, acting, and that is how people start acting. That is how you start doing things in the domain of God, because God names, He creates and He names. And we necessarily also have to do the same. We only named house 5, Cabal, and house 7. Can you imagine what is also unique about house 7? Abizelda, is that there's also a planet that has been here. I'm not certain here, because Aries is such a far distant planet. It's actually classified as a trans-Neptunian body, because it's so far away outside the domain of a sun, that actually it's already so much inclined. As you can see here, you see most of the planets, when we plan them, they cluster, they try to cluster around this orbit of the sun. If this orbit of the sun, we are seeing this graphic rather on a sphere, it would be round. But because you have been forced to spread it on a flat surface, for us to be able to pick it, that is why it's a squiggly line. And Aries is so far away from the very center, although it's very close at this point in time to the celestial equator, but it's quite very far away from the path the sun takes, which we call the ecliptic. It's actually on what we call it's virtually on it's actually not even in the 12 or the 13 zodiac hosts. We have it in a host that is called Cetus. Cetus is just a little bit to the south of the main host of house 7, which is Pisces at this point in time. And I find it amazing, because Cetus is actually described as a whale. It's a whale. So it's a deep water living animal. And I am certain there is also much more to learn. Just the same way we are talking about the Leviathan. This is nothing. Something is actually also can also be described as a Leviathan. It is something that is to be there. We can learn about harnessing. But at least we know this planet will be domiciled within here for at least the next foreseeable, maybe about at least a decade or two. So we have Uranus, Sirius, and all that, and then we see the moon. The moon is just about to complete its transit through house 11. It will be house 12, and then it will begin again, transit through the 5 houses and meet the sun in the 6th house, and that's how we're going to have the new month. So basically, that's the thing that is about to happen. So the most immediate thing that we are waiting for is the transit of a sun. Right, is just happening today. Actually, by tomorrow, a time like now, sun will be clearly in house 6, and Venus and Mercury are just about to. I'm certain actually even Mercury may have actually completed its transit through, or rather, it must have completed in the last few days to complete its retrograde, but it is still going to remain a morning star for at least a calendar month, and then we're going to start observing it as an evening star happening or being seen right after sunset. So that is our astrological insights. As always, if you do have any question, you can use the chat message, the chat functionality in the main room, and send a message to us, and we'll be able to answer it for you. You can also just unmute and speak. And please, this is meant to be a conversation, really, so you don't have to wait for me to speak. I'll be able to hear you out. I don't know whether I can actually